See, well, start my going chronologically through this. When I first joined the reserves, we were a chemical engineering corps, and we went to our summer camps were at Twilla, Utah. So we come down to that chemical base they had there, and we'd learn all about radioactivity and the chemical warfares, different gas that was used. Back then it was before they got the treaty with the Russians, so they had a stockpile of gas, but they were trying, the U.S. was trying to keep from using them. They were trying to get treaties, and so they were mostly stockpiling that than using it. And so we learned gas masks, and so that unit that we had joined was a chemical engineering unit. And since I was thinking of starting in college as an engineer, I thought, well, that would give me a little more experience in my schooling than what probably the National Guard would, which was primarily military training and local help. They help the local people with, and they do kind of a civil engineering job, but the chemical engineering sounded a little more enticing to me. So my first summer camp was down to Twilla, Utah. So for 2 weeks, went down there and had my first experiences of military training where people forgot everything that they were supposed to do, and we were shuffled off many times and not given clearance. They hadn't got clearance enough for some of them to go where we were supposed to go for the training, but there was 3 of us that happened to have the clearances made, because we were back in Pocatello, Idaho, while all the rest of our unit was in Montpelier. They needed to get enough people to staff it. They went to both cities. And so in Pocatello, we had a little better professional, because we had the guy that was there over the program, and that was a professional Army, but he had retired to the reserves and was spending his time there before retirement. But up in Montpelier, they were guided by a reservist, a reservist captain. And so this reservist captain and that didn't get all the papers done that we did in Pocatello. And so when we got down there, we went off to the part of the base that they were restricted from. But with just 3 of us, they didn't seem to think that was enough to waste time, I guess, for training. They stuck us out in a building, and a guy says, oh, there's some gas masks, look at them and see if you can make a good one out of all of them, and here's the tools to take them apart and that. And he was gone the rest of the day. They come and picked us up, and then the next day we went down the same place, and we asked him, well, what are we doing these gas masks for? And he says, oh yeah, well, we've got this gas chamber where we test out gases and that. And he says, so we'll let you test your gas mask there. He went off for the rest of the day. The third day, which was our last day to be out in that area, and by the way, that was an interesting area. They told us not to wander around because there was places out there that were hot with gases they tested, and that the area could kill you. So we, even though we weren't restricted to the main base, we were still restricted to certain areas. So then on the third day he came out and he says, oh, I forgot to get the gas chamber ready for you. So he took us in and showed us the gas chamber. It was all enclosed, and the testing area was down about a level lower than the viewing area. And he says, now if we had had this ready, I'd have to tell you not to do like the Army training, where when they do their gas mask training with tear gas, they're in a building and then they're supposed to take their gas mask off so they can smell the gas, and supposed to repeat like their ID number and everything, and then how to clear the mask to put it back on. And he says, but in this chamber, we put in a heavy dose, and it's so small, you don't take your mask off. You put it on before you go in, you take it off after you get out. He says, we had a military major come around one time that we forgot to give him the warning, and he thought he could do just like he did in his training, and in there, and he whips off the mask and goes to start a breath to start to say something, and start pounding on the door, and they had to get him out in a hurry. And then this guy, this was the most time we had any instructor there with us, and he told us, he says, this testing we do around here, I would never go hunting, and here's a warning to you, hunting in 100 miles of this post, because jackrabbits and deer and everything come through this area, and if they get into those chemical areas and then wander out, because we have no way to control them, and you shoot them, you don't know what you're eating. But later, several years later, after I was out of the reserves, they had some sheep wander in there, and a sheep farmer lost a herd of sheep out there. So that proves to me it was a really deadly area. Fort Ord was when I joined the reserves back in, 1959, and that was basic training. 6 months of basic training there. That was all infantry training until we graduated and went to OJT. And for OJT, I went to clerical school. So, and I managed to be a rating of clerk typist. If you couldn't type too fast or accurately, you just were a clerk. So as a clerk typist, then we went out on the job, and I was assigned to the post locator, which essentially is the military section of the post office.
Oh, okay.
The mail for the fort, and we would handle the mail for all of Fort Ord, Honoligat, which was south of that, and Presidio, which was up by San Francisco.
Okay.
The mail had come into the U.S. Post Office, where they would then break it down, and any that was in the local area that was non-military, or non-post, I should say, because a lot of the military, the regular Army military lived around there. For the little cities and that, they would sort that out and send it out, and then all the military would come into our section. And in our section, we would receive all the orders for transfer as people came in and went out, and we on typewriters, the transfers would come in on sheets of paper that orders essentially is what they were. So it was a regular 5 by, let's see, what is it, 11 by 8.5. Okay.
8.5 by 11,
11
yep.
by 8.5 paper. And then we would type them in onto a locator card, which was similar to the IBM cards in size, but we never punched holes in them. We just, across the top, typed the information. And then we had tables out there that the card, locator card, would slip down into a sleeve with just the typed information showing. And then there is another sleeve above that, and above that, and above that. And so about 10 cards high, we'd have the locator information down, and we'd keep it in alphabetical order by the name of the person.
I see.
And and the other thing, the post office would handle the mail also on the post that got delivered. If it couldn't be delivered, if it was sent back to the post office, that's what they sent to us. And then we were the post locator, so we were locate the people. And we'd have all their transfer orders and that, so we would forward their mail on to where they had gone. Distribution of the letter. And if we couldn't possibly figure it out, it went into our dead letter file. And every once in a while, if we had a break and nothing to do, we'd go to the dead letter file and try to refigure them out. And that was my Fort Ord experience.